Good morning. I'm Nancy Olson, the chair of the Standing Committee, the governing body here at First Church Boston. We're glad you are with us, either in person or online. I'd like to give a special welcome to any visitors today. We welcome Reverend Mary Margaret Earl to our pulpit this morning. Reverend Earl has served as Executive Director and Senior Minister of the Unitarian Universalist Urban Ministry for 11 years, and will be talking about how we stay grounded in this moment. If you are here with us in person, we invite you to join us for coffee hour immediately following the service. To learn more about First Church Boston or Unitarian Universalism, please visit firstchurchboston.org or contact Reverend Earl or our intern minister, Ebony Smith Cooper, or me during coffee hour in the narthex immediately following the service. Highlighting some of the announcements of what is happening here in the order in which they are happening, or actually something that has already happened. Per the church bylaws, and after consultation with the nominating committee, one of the vacancies on the standing committee has been filled by Ben Sabatini, and I don't think he's here today, but he is often here. So he will be joining the standing committee. This coming Friday, November 14th, will be the opening reception for our current art exhibit. These wonderful paintings are the work of our member, David Brown. The reception will allow you to spend time with the paintings, with David, and with others in our First Church community, artist or not. Thank you to Alex Khalil and John Clark for putting this all together. And I can tell you that the reception for the previous exhibit was just a terrific time, so I would encourage you to come and participate in that evening as well. It's this coming Friday, November 14th at 5 o'clock. Next Sunday, you can be artistic in a different way by helping to plant daffodil bulbs. The bulbs are provided by the city's Boston Blooms with Daffodils program, so we only need to get them in the ground so they will come up in the spring. So for more details on these and other events, please consult either your e-news or the order of service. Thank you again for being here today. Let our service now begin.
Our opening words are from the Gray Hymnal by Robert French Levins. Holy and beautiful the custom which brings us together in the presence of the Most High, to face our ideals, to remember our loved ones in absence, to give thanks, to make confession, to offer forgiveness, to be enlightened, and to be strengthened. Through this quiet hour breathes the worship of ages, the cathedral music of history. 3 unseen guests attend: faith, hope, and love. Let all our hearts prepare them place.
Good morning. I'm Ebony Smith Cooper, intern minister here at First Church. My pronouns are they, them. Would you please join me as I light the chalice in saying our congregational affirmation? Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. And now, we will greet one another as we are customary to on Sunday mornings, and don't forget to wave to the camera for our folks on Zoom. Please join me as we sing hymn number 352 in the gray hymnal, Find a Stillness, hymn number 352 in the gray hymnal. I would like to invite the children up. And this morning, our story will be read by our coordinator of religious education, Noah.
Hello, that's really loud. Maybe like that. How's that? Alrighty, come take a seat. I am going to be reading Steps and Stones by Gail Silver and illustrated by Christiana Cromer. It's very pretty illustrations. We'll leave it out in the area out there if anyone wants to look at it. Recess is On's favorite part of the day. But not today. Today, his friends Sam and Charlie ran right past him, not even looking his way. "Wait," On called. "We're supposed to dig. I brought shovels and everything." "We don't want to dig," said Sam, bouncing a big red ball in the dirt. "Yeah," echoed Charlie. "Digging is for babies. We're playing kickball instead." On felt like he'd been punched in the stomach. "I don't want to play kickball," he said. "I want to dig." But Sam and Charlie were already kicking the ball around, and On was left alone. On walked to the shade of the oak tree, a salty tear rounding the corner of his lip. He leaned against the tree and watched as the tear made a tiny puddle in the dirt. "I'm glad you finally stopped," said a voice. "I've been trying to get your attention." On lifted his head and saw a dark silhouette and a pair of red sneakers. "Anger?" asked On. "Is that you?" "It's me," said Anger. "You know I always show up when things aren't going your way." On looked at his Anger. He hadn't seen him for a while. "Why were you wearing all that stuff?" An asked. "I almost didn't recognize you." "I was trying to be inconspicuous," Anger whispered. "I'm not sure if I'm allowed at school." An and Anger sat together watching the other kids play kickball. "Sam and Charlie were supposed to dig with me," said An. "I know," said Anger. "Now I have no one to play with," An said, "and Charlie thinks I'm a baby." "I can think of a thing or two that I'd like to say to Charlie," said Anger. "Me too," said An. "I'd stand up to him and I'd say, 'I'm no baby.' And then," said Anger excitedly, "we'd grab the ball and we'd throw it at him." "Come on," said Anger. "Let's find Sam and Charlie." Anger jumped up and started to run. "I don't know," An said. "Maybe this isn't such a good idea. Can we slow down?" An and Anger began walking slowly together. With their first step, they took a breath in. With their next step, they let a breath out. One step, breathing in. One step, breathing out. "I've never walked this slowly before," said Anger. "It feels funny." "Let's try counting our steps," An suggested. "Maybe that will help." 1, 2, 3. An and Anger quietly counted the rise and fall of each step. 4, 5, 6. An could feel his breath moving up and down in his belly. 7, 8, 9. "It's hard to concentrate," said Anger. "I keep losing my count." 10, 11, and 12. An felt a cool breeze behind him, gently pushing him towards the field. 13, 14, 15. The slow rhythm of An's breath comforted him, and he started to feel better. "Anger," called An. "Are you still here?" "I'm right here," Anger answered softly. "What are you doing?" said An. "I'm a little tired," said Anger. "I think I should stay here and rest." "Okay," said An. "I can go on by myself now." "Wait," said Anger, handing An a dandelion. "Make a wish." An closed his eyes and drew in a big breath. He blew it out and watched the dandelion seeds scatter. "Now you make a wish," said An, turning to Anger. But Anger had already faded away. An rose to his feet and walked slowly towards the field. The sun was warm on his face, and he wanted to play. 16, 17, An couldn't help walking a little faster. 18, 19, 20, An said, the sound of his voice surprising him. 20 what? Someone asked. It was Sarah, a girl from his class. 20 steps from there to here, said An. He pointed back towards the big oak tree. Why were you counting your steps? She asked. An thought about his anger, the oak tree, and the slow walk. He thought about Charlie and Sam. It's a long story, he said. I like long stories, Sarah said, poking in the dirt. Hey, look what I found. Wow, said An. That's a really cool rock. Sarah held the small shimmery stone up to the sun, and it sparkled in the light. I've never seen a rock like that before, said Sam, running up. I know, said An. You can find a lot of neat stuff when you dig. You haven't told us your story, Sarah said. Why were you counting your steps? Yeah, said Charlie, coming over. Why were you walking so slowly? Charlie, Sam, and Sarah gathered around. Come on, they said. Tell us. An looked at his friends and smiled. Recess is my favorite part of the day, and began. And it still was. Thank you. How's that? Awesome. We are going to be sung out. Yes.
This morning, during our time of centering and prayer and stillness, we are going to do something a little special. We're going to center and also connect with something in our center that helps us withstand the turbulent times that we're in. We're going to reflect on a core strength and our ability to withstand what's happening around us, and we're going to write that down in a word or two or three. So you see these slips of paper around and a few pens. You can share, pass them down. We're going to spend some time in quiet today reflecting on something that we observed about ourselves, a touchstone that meant we rebounded, rose up, found a way through. We'll recall that hard diamond at the center of us, that flowing river within us, and we'll write it down, and then we're going to pass them to the end of the aisle where they'll be collected, and a few are going to be shared later in the worship service together. First, I'm going to invite us to join in some centering with some words. Then we're going to have about a minute of quiet to reflect and to write that core strength, and then pass them down. So I invite us to breathe in and breathe out and center ourselves. Spirit of life, of creativity, of resilience, we gather in gratitude for this time to step away from the noise and the chatter and to be together in community in this sacred space among friends. We take time to settle in, to let our shoulders drop, to be. In this sea of trouble in which we find ourselves, in the waves of turmoil, we remember we have been through turmoil and we have come through. We remember when we fell and we rose again. We remember when we lost our way and found a new way. We remember heartbreak and then healing. And we remember what it was within us that helped us rise, find, heal. Our love, our strength, our stubbornness, our faith. We breathe in and reflect, and then write that strength. we enter together into a time of quiet reflection. And I invite you to pass your slips of paper toward the center aisle where they will be collected. And we deepen our time into worship together.
And now it is time to practice our value of generosity. Please, some of these plates. Please give as you are willing and able.
Sometimes the news says to beware that they're disturbing images. This is a difficult read. Reading from The Devil of Unrest by Eric Larson about the events and tensions leading up to the launch of the Civil War. Senator Seward of New York, an abolitionist who would later become Abraham Lincoln's Secretary of State before Lincoln took office, gave a conciliatory speech to calm the rising anger of slaveholding states which were threatening secession. He assured them that he would vote for a constitutional amendment that Congress would not abolish enslavement where it already existed. His wife, also an abolitionist, and other allies were disappointed in his effort to appease the riled-up South. And, of course, his reassurances did not succeed. From the book, and this is the quote, "What Senator Seward perhaps did not truly understand was this: at this point in the crisis, the thing the South most resented was the inalterable fact that the North, like the rest of the modern world, condemned slavery as a fundamental evil. In so doing, abolitionists and their allies impugned the honor of the entire Southern white race. For if slavery was indeed evil, then the South itself was evil, and echelons of gentlemen, the chivalry, were nothing more than moral felons. Yet the chivalry had persuaded themselves of a different reality. Slavery was a positive good. It was endorsed by the Bible and by anthropological observation. Even two famed Northern anthropologists, Louis Agassiz and Charles Morton, both of Harvard no less, had proclaimed on the basis of reportedly scientific research that the black race was not only inferior, but a different species altogether. If slavery was good, then slave owners were good, and anyone who said otherwise abraded their honor, something no Southerner could forgive."
Good morning. It is lovely to return to First Church Boston again this year, and it's always an honor to be in the pulpit of my beloved colleague, the Reverend Dr. Stephanie May, who is a faithful friend of the racial justice work of the UU Urban Ministry. I want to thank everyone who's helped put this worship service together today. I want to thank Ebony, all the folks who helped pass out the papers and collect them. Thank you to the choir and to Bob and to the reader. And I also want to point out that my colleague Maggie is here. She's raised her hand, and she's set up a table about the urban ministry in the social hour if you would like to know more about our work. We have a long and deep relationship with First Church. A First Church delegate to the urban ministry is Grace Greger, who's not here this morning, but she is also a former board member of the urban ministry. And it's always nice for me to be able to appreciate and thank friends and members of First Church who are supportive of our work, including Jean and Jordan Krasnow, Grace and Bill Greger, Reverend Sheldon and Molly Bennett, Margaret Fitzgerald and Mark Comstock, and Joanne Quaz. The John Clark Fund and the South Friendly Society Fund have contributed to our youth and domestic violence programs, and I'm just very grateful to be able to say thank you in person for all your support through the years. It is good to be here with you in this moment, which is a hard and intense moment in history. Daily, we receive this cascade of headlines that frighten and frustrate and anger us before we even can start our day. Who here, when you're reading the headlines and hearing the news, can feel like you're a cat chasing a laser beam? Or who can wake up, look at the paper, and feel exhausted by breakfast? Who here feels exhausted by breakfast? I sometimes do. So this morning, we focus on how we resist being drawn into the chaos and about staying grounded in the midst of it. And we begin by breathing in and out, and we begin with a story. In March of 1861, Abraham Lincoln was inaugurated and became president when the nation was at the brink. At the heart of the stress fracture between the North and the South was enslavement. This conflict was intensifying as Southern slaveholders feared that Lincoln would end their dominion. For years, the dispute over enslavement had simmered. The South, no longer in step with the rest of the world that had deemed it immoral, protected the institution ferociously. Political solutions like the Missouri Compromise had tenuously held the nation together, but all of that was coming undone with Lincoln's unlikely election. This gangly, rough-hewn president had a deep and abiding faith in the Constitution of our young country and in the central importance of its cohesion, and he waded into the center of a fiery cauldron. One of the first letters passed to him after he assumed the presidency was about the crisis at Fort Sumter in Charleston, South Carolina. This moment, we now know, was the spark that finally ignited the Civil War. Charleston was a hub for slave trading, and South Carolina the first state to secede from the Union. The politics of the slave-holding state were driven by the wishes of a group of wealthy enslavers known as the chivalry. Eric Larson, in his book, The Demon of Unrest, which you heard from a moment ago, described events leading up to the attack on Fort Sumter and described the chivalry thus. The chivalry gave themselves military titles and favored elaborate uniforms. Their Southern Carolina standard bearer, novelist William Gilmore Simms, wrote 82 novels in which chivalry and honor were central themes. Chivalry to him meant gallantry, stimulated by courage, warmed by enthusiasm, and refined by courtesy. The chivalry valued honor above all human traits, and they would happily kill to sustain it, end quote. Their fierce commitment to enslavement was propelled by, yes, economics and power, but also something even stronger, self-image. Southern enslavers needed to see enslavement as good because they wanted to be seen as good. This was an electric current running through the conflict. Quote, reading again from the book, "The thing the South most resented," Larson wrote, "was the inalterable fact that the North, like the rest of the modern world, had condemned slavery as a fundamental evil. In doing so, abolitionists and their allies impugned the honor of the entire Southern white race, for if slavery was indeed evil, then the South itself was evil, and its echelons of gentlemen, the chivalry, were nothing more than moral felons," end quote. This, the South could not forgive. And it was in this charged atmosphere that Fort Sumter stood. When South Carolina seceded, its leaders deemed it an insult to their new government that federal troops remained. They demanded surrender. To hold the fort, U.S. troops needed food, supplies dwindled, the Confederate forces swelled. At stake was the nation, a continued fragile truce between North and South. At stake was war. In this fraught moment, Abraham Lincoln received the letter about Fort Sumter. The question before Lincoln was whether to fight, to send supplies, or to evacuate, each choice leading to a reaction of national proportions. He received it and he immediately paused. He pondered. Abraham Lincoln pondered. With tensions rising, with Confederate representatives knocking at his door, with streams of job seekers crowding into the White House, Lincoln considered. He stayed Grounded, and he considered. He asked his newly appointed cabinet members to weigh in. When most said abandon Fort Sumter, he continued pondering. He asked questions, weighed options. Days passed, tensions rose. And Abraham Lincoln stood in the midst of it, considering the surest path forward. We know the ending of the story. In the short term, Sumter was lost. In the longer term, the Union held. In the much longer term, we are still grappling with the legacy of enslavement into today. When I read this story, I was struck by three things. One, the parallel with today's national landscape. Two, Lincoln's ability to resist chaos and think. And three, how that is even harder for us to do now in the midst of a rapid-fire news cycle. Today, we hear echoes of that pre-Civil War time, the polarization, the anger, the high stakes, the drive of a few very elite people at the top to hold power. But there's also the pace of it. News not delivered by horseback, but by nonstop social media. We live in a maelstrom of distressing news, and maybe that's the point of it, to distract and exhaust us. And so there's no more important matter before us than staying grounded in the midst of it, staying grounded so that we can prioritize, think, act from the strength at the center of ourselves. Our first task is bringing ourselves back to the center of ourselves. So we call on prayer, meditation, music, exercise, laughter. This last one, Abraham Lincoln used liberally in his storytelling. We may not feel that we have the time for that with glaciers melting and democracy at risk, but staying grounded is our first task of resistance. When we feel overwhelmed, it is time to slow down, step back, and breathe, not to avoid what's happening, but to wisely respond to it. And when the dust of the chaos settles, we stay grounded in our heads, in our hearts, and in our guts. First, we stay grounded in our heads, in what we know. Over the past 5 years, since the killing of George Floyd, many of us woke up to the legacy of enslavement. Statistics on health, wealth, and educational disparities evidenced this legacy. According to the Boston Indicators, in 2022, white U.S. households had about 6 times the wealth of Black households. In Massachusetts, Black and Hispanic residents are far likelier to rely on Medicaid compared with whites who often have employer-sponsored health insurance. And in Boston, life expectancy in Roxbury, an historically Black neighborhood, is 23 years less than it is in white Back Bay. In the face of this knowledge, we begun hanging Black Lives Matter banners on our historic meeting houses. We examined the history that we've inherited in which criminal justice, healthcare, and housing systems conspire against people of color. We held vigils, called for diversity, looked inward, and talked more seriously about reparations. At the Urban Ministry in 2020, we made commitments for racial reckoning, promising to interrogate the history of First Church Roxbury, the congregation whose historic meeting house we inherited and inhabit. Since then, we've worked in partnership with the African American community, searching archives for the names of people enslaved by white congregants to trace their lives and lineage, to name and to honor them. In 2020, we committed to a vision in which all people have equitable access to resources and the opportunity to shape the future. We deepened our commitment to our after-school program, standing with the high school students of color who are reaching for their dreams as they seek to remove the barriers that stand in front of them. Because of wealth disparities, Black students need to borrow more money to go to college, meaning they carry more debt into adulthood. And once they graduate, they continue to face inequity. According to the Center for Economic and Social Justice at Roxbury Community College, white workers in Greater Boston with a high school diploma make $2 more per hour than people of color with an associate's degree. At the Urban Ministry, we work persistently and insistently to ensure that these students have opportunity to follow their dreams and thrive despite the barriers they've inherited. Now comes a groundswell effort to turn back time, to stop any progress. Recently, I read comments from an activist in Greater Boston who is talking about how it's become more difficult to get people in Boston to focus on racial justice because there's so much going on. And yes, there is a lot going on. But the work that we all took up to address the racist fissures in our nation is no less relevant today than it was in 2020. Indeed, it is at the heart of what's going on. According to the Indicators Project, the proposed federal budget cuts will further increase historic racial disparities. Quote, by cutting supports like Medicaid and SNAP and reshaping student aid, this bill not only worsens income inequality today, but it also sets in motion dynamics that will widen wealth disparities tomorrow, especially along racial lines, end quote. The end of the Civil War was not an end to racism. Pro-slavery Americans surrendered but were not transformed. And racism has shape-shifted through the last century, through lynchings and redlining and mass incarceration into today and this landscape. Racism may not be the only thread running through today's struggle for the soul of our country, but it is most certainly a thick and tenacious one. So we ground ourselves in the work that we have already undertaken and in what we've learned, in what we know, and we stay the course. 2, we ground ourselves in our hearts by who we know and love. We ground ourselves in community. We center ourselves in real relationships in real time and how we're gathering today in this faith community. Here is the power to create, to transform, to lift up. Consider how within this faith community you call one another forward. Offer opportunities for activism, lend encouragement. Who here has been to a protest, written a letter, sent a postcard, learned about a social justice issue because of this faith community? Who here has done something for social justice because of this faith community? Quite a few hands. It was because someone asked you to, invited you to, was willing to stand with you. We do together what would be harder to do alone. Let us feel the energy that pulses here in this circle. Let that ground us. And let us also widen the circle. In Greater Boston, we remain deeply segregated by race and by income. To be fully and powerfully grounded in what is happening today, we need to be proximate to those who are most directly impacted by both inherited and generational inequality, and right now by the cuts to SNAP and healthcare, for whom poverty is a daily reality. Brian Stevenson of the Equal Justice Initiative speaks of the power of proximity. Ultimately, he says, what we do to get proximate to those who are disfavored, what we do to change narratives, what we do to stay hopeful, what we do that is inconvenient and uncomfortable, can sometimes be the most meaningful thing that we do, end quote. At the Urban Ministry, one of our deepest values is partnership and proximity. We walk with Roxbury organizations and build connections. We listen to the Black community, which has a deep and lived experience in facing and overcoming oppression by weaponized institutions, something that some of us are facing and fearing for the first time. When we reach out beyond our mostly white and comfortable communities, we ground ourselves in the power of relationship. When we get proximate to communities directly impacted by the pain that is being doled out, then the crisis we are in moves from an idea into our hearts, and we move with greater assurance and urgency. And 3, we ground ourselves in our guts, in knowing who we are. Many of us are afraid of what the future holds. I'm afraid. Single-handedly, we cannot control or predict what is to come. But every single one of us here has been through hard times before, and we survived somehow. For every one of us, there was a time when we were so overwhelmed or sad or stressed that it was hard to see the way forward, but we found the way, and here we are now. Every one of us has that glowing coal at the center that got us through. Eric Larson writes of Lincoln's Secretary of State, William Seward, in the early days of the new administration, when Seward tried to manipulate the new president about Fort Sumter in the midst of that cloud of stress. Seward, the more polished politician, was certain that he could push around this country lawyer, this man who'd suffered the loss of his mother, whose father was barely literate, who grew up poor. What he did not recognize yet, Larson wrote, is that there was steel in this Illinois lawyer. We have within us gifts of steel and light to bring to the times that we are here, that we are in. I want to share some of them right now, the strength that is right here. Staying strong and loving and kind. Hope and love. Resilience. My touchstone are my memories of my mom's strength. The sunshine in my grandfather's loving smile. When I breathe in peace, patience, friends, breath, hope for a better future, gratitude for all that is good, and more. These are just some of the gifts that are here among us right now. There is a cloud of chaos and hurt happening, but we have the power to resist by what we know, by who we know, and by who we are. May we remember that we are enough, more than enough for the times that we are in, and let us keep walking forward with faith and with hope. In the words of the Reverend William Barber, forward together, not one step back. Amen. I invite you to join in singing hymn number 1014 in the Teal hymnal. We are changing the words slightly to answering the call of love. So when you see those words, please say, instead of standing on the side of love, please sing answering the call of love. Please join with me in hymn 1014, Answering the Call of Love.
Please join me now as we extinguish the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Go out remembering that you are enough, more than enough, for the times that we are in. Let us keep walking forward with hope and in faith. Amen.